Welcome to the Unlocking Wealth podcast. Thanks for joining us. We will motivate and inspire you as we share strategies from successful and wealthy individuals. Here is your host, David Ordonez, an entrepreneur and real estate investor.
Welcome to another episode of Unlocking Wealth podcast. This is our episode number 6, and I'm very excited to have Janie, Grenier, and Kyle Duelund. They're from Canada, and their company is U.S Real Estate Partners. They've been investing in real estate for about 15 years. And amazing story. Janie started at the age of 19, have invested in real estate and owned well over 100 units. And Kyle has a degree on education and math. So an interesting combination. Welcome, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, just want to dive into your story. I think your story is great. I mean, you're from Canada originally, and having been investing in the real estate market in the U.S. for 15 years. So let's just start with your story. I mean, tell me, how did you get into real estate? How do you guys got involved? How do you guys build your company together as life partners and business partners? And let's dive in.
Well, let's dive right into it. I'm excited. It's a beautiful story. And so the story of JK's Real Estate Partner starts with J, and that stands for Janie. And honestly, really quickly on my side, I was, your good little boy, went to school, get the good grades, get the good job. So I was school, focus. It just so happens that in my bachelor's degrees from McGill University in education, I was invited to go on a stage, a teacher training placement. So I can go anywhere in the world I wanted to finish my in-field experience. And through life's miracles, I somehow ended up finding my way in northern Quebec, northern Canada, in a community called Wemindji. And that's where I met Janie, and that's where my life completely changed, because she's the visionary, the entrepreneur, the spirit, the ambition, all that fun stuff, and took my little box and exploded it to what it has become today. So
that's great.
That's my story on how it all started.
Janie.
Well, as a young girl, I always wanted real estate. So I remember being a 9-year-old dreaming about owning the island of Montreal and all the buildings in it. So by the age of 19, I invested in my first property. I am a nurse by nature. I'm a nurse by nature. And so I bought my first property on a promise that the hospital gave me to hire me. That's how I first started. And the plan was to buy one house every 5 years, enough to get the down payment, buy 5 or 6 houses under my personal name, and that call it quits. By the time I'm 50, 55, my first house would have been sold, cash that out, buy myself an RV, and travel the world. That's what I wanted to do. And then met Kyle in Wemindji, where I worked as a nurse up there, as a nurse clinician. And at some point, I was part of a few real estate clubs in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And I was on Facebook one day, and there was a pop-up ad that invited us to go see a U.S. seminar, so real estate seminar. And signed us up, and we went to go see that seminar, and we realized that there was a lot of opportunities in the U.S. compared to Canada. The prices in Canada, anyways, where we were very expensive. So we decided to give it a shot, and we got into some mentorship, and we started investing in the U.S. That's 9 years ago now, and 15 years ago in Canada. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been a fun ride.
That's great. Now, your family wasn't in real estate. I mean, something that you just had the drive to it. I mean, you like it. You were attracted to that space, to that industry, and you saw a potential to create wealth for you and your family.
Well, they've always loved real estate, but they got scammed many times, my family. Okay. And so there was huge warning signs all around me all the time. Do not invest in real estate. As an investor, buying your house is fine, but anything beyond that little box, they were not a fan of at all. We were discouraged to do anything real estate related in my family.
And what is amazing is that you've been able to build your portfolio from Canada, investing in the US in remote markets, right? And that would probably be even more scary for many people, to buy properties that they don't see, touch. They're, 1,000 miles away from it. And I've heard about, horror stories as well for investors that, try to go into the remote investing without knowing exactly what to do and how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Probably you're
Yeah.
familiar. Yeah.
It can certainly be tricky or scary, and my family was all against it. So Kyle and I, when we decided we wanted to do U.S. real estate, we started in mentorship, and we surrounded ourselves with like-minded people, and we decided to back away from our families and friends for almost 3 years.
Yeah.
Because naysayers, not that they don't love you, but they
Yeah.
unfortunately they're not your cheerleaders, and when you don't have cheerleaders, it's very difficult when you don't have proof that this thing works. And having someone that says it's never going to work, you're paying too high interest, it's the U.S., it's another country, and all the reasons are good for them to not make it work, and we have this dedication that we want to make it work, so we have to back off and find people that are gonna
think like you. Yeah. No, that's key. I think that's key. I mean, separate from the people that even your family, so you can keep your mind set where you want to go and with that positive energy, it's very important. Now, so from that moment, you're working in education and you're working as a nurse. So how long did it take you to become full-time investor? So how was that jump?
Yeah,
that was a fun retirement party.
Yeah, I was a nurse manager. We decided to retire. So basically, it had been 3 years that we'd been investing in the U.S. full time, even though we were working full-time hours. So we were putting in about 100 hours combined in the business side of things, because we wanted to learn and grow, and we were just eating everything up. We absolutely loved it. So about 3 years later, we had bought 42 doors, and at 42 doors, that was our retirement number. So at that point, I quit my job as a nurse. I was a nurse manager at the time, and Kyle finished his master's degree and never went back to work after that. Yeah.
For somebody else other than you.
Now, mainly on the residential space, right? I mean, multifamilies as well.
So we did, we started small. We started with the single family homes, and then we went to the small plexes, and then the bigger ones. And then eventually we jumped into mobile home parks, which we really enjoy.
That's a great asset class.
It really is.
We'll talk more about that. I think is a very interesting asset class, and is not as known as other asset classes, right? It's very under the radar.
Correct. Yeah, it's a great asset class. Yeah,
it's gaining more popularity, but it's still, compared to the others, and what I like specifically, I mean, is the creative real estate that happens. Like, we're talking, because it's a little sidetrack asset, if you will, we're comparably in the timeshare, the RVs, the trailers, the mobile homes, the mobile home parks, like all those asset classes, it's very common that, to be very simplistic, there's seller financing, but there's way more than just seller financing as a creative acquisition strategy. But those practices, land contracts, master leases with options, and all that, very commonplace. And in our experience anyways, we were able to get creative deals much more frequently in that space.
Yeah. And that's amazing about real estate, right? I mean, you can get so creative on the financing, so creative in all aspects of the deal itself, that it just opens so many opportunities to make the deal happen. Obviously, if the numbers make sense. But yeah, that's great. What was your biggest challenge when you were starting out? I mean, you're doing this transition after 3 years. Obviously, you retire and you're doing this full time. What were the biggest challenges that you guys came across?
Oh, that's a good question. A lot. Well, first of all, the no quit attitude, I think for me anyways, was when things just don't go right, and at some point things get hard. It can get hard, and then you don't have anyone around you that supports you because they don't have proof that this works. Kyle is definitely the Janie, failure's not an option, period. You just keep going. And when you keep going, you'll win at some point.
You don't stop, you can't lose.
So for me, that was definitely one of my biggest challenges. And that's all a mindset component, a mindset game. So yeah, real estate is great, and that's one thing, but you have to work your mindset. So that's definitely been a challenge for me. And I'm doing a lot better, and I don't cry for every little obstacle now. I see it as a nice challenge, and we move forward. So that's one for me. So surrounding ourselves with people that were like-minded was a challenge. We created a community because we didn't have any people around us. So we started from scratch.
Yeah.
And you guys have a huge community now. I mean, on your Facebook group, you have over what? I mean, I think I'm part of it as
I think
well.
we're like at over 10,000 in our JK
Yeah.
community. And we started very
That's
small,
great.
local in Montreal with a meetup.com, and that's how we got started. But yeah, so that was definitely a challenge. Is there any, I mean, investing remotely altogether is a challenge in itself.
Yeah.
You know, there's ways to do it right. There's ways to build your team to make sure that you make your money when you buy, not when you sell. And a lot of people don't know that, but you have to make sure that what you're buying at a distance is, cash flowing, is at a discount. So all that everything involved with remote real estate is a challenge.
One of the challenges that I've found on our investments, and I also hear from people that they are afraid of that, is how do you find the right team, like contractors specifically, right? When you're buying remotely, because there's people that live in markets that really doesn't make sense to invest, like California or markets that they're just not going to cash flow. But the Midwest, for example, is a great market for rentals and smaller multifamilies. So how do you approach that challenge? What would you tell somebody that wants to start investing remotely in one of these markets? How do you make sure that you're not going to get that actually you're going to get a good contractor? You can rely on that. I'm building that team. What's the key?
The key. So let's kind of go through what we did, because we're not saying we're perfect, but it might give some insight as to what to do, what not to do. So we first got started for our first contractor was actually someone who helped us find our very first property. So it's someone that we built a relationship with, and we ended up touring properties with him, and he ended up doing the work. And so it was building a relationship that got us that far.
We also visited properties that he's done, and we looked over the portfolio that he had in pictures. So that's how we got started. Yeah.
So not everyone, especially in our community, we teach them that you don't need to go in person necessarily to buy the real estate. A lot of people do like it for many reasons, mostly emotional, but still, if you're on site, you might be more emotionally in tune with the person, and the whole process could be smoother for you depending on your personality type. And so references, basically, if you're not going to go in person, align with someone who has gone through that and who can firmly recommend and showcase that person's work, values, and
correct
the works. That's another reason why we build the entire community, is to offer exactly that. We can offer some of our people, and through the community, they're fostering their own relationships. They're not all dependent on us. We don't want that. We want them to go out there, build their relationships, and then share with the group, so the group becomes stronger as a whole. That was the whole point.
Okay.
Because we've had contractors who did 1-2 projects, and then they ran away with a fridge. I mean, like, what you gonna do? And you have to restart. You have to build new relationships, and that is a continuous challenge. And it's gotten to a point now that we just hired a month ago a full-time project manager, over $100,000, to oversee our projects. So now we've gotten to that point with that level of scale, that level of projects.
Correct.
Now we can get to that point, but not everyone starts there. And
No, and we've had the same experience. I mean, we've hired, contractors that have done 3-4 projects perfectly fine. And then all of a sudden, project is not moving, and we have to change contractors in the middle of the project. And, that's how usually, a headache is. But at the end, is the challenge, is the obstacle that can become an opportunity at the same time. And you just deal with it, because I do tell, future investors or people that want to invest, that there is always going to be challenges, right? And there's always going to be these difficulties to overcome. And unfortunately, there's a lot of information out there that sell this story about being a real estate entrepreneur as easy, cash flowing passively, and is all easy and wonderful, right? When what we know is a lot of challenges, great rewards, but at the same time, I think we always have a lot of obstacles on the way that we have to overcome.
I'd like to say it's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. Because it is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. People need to know what they're getting into before. And like you said, there's a lot of people out there that sell the dream, and that's good. It gets motivational. It gets people started. But after a while, if you don't realistically understand that there's going to be obstacles, and obstacles are okay, it's just you're just going to grow from them, and you're going to get better, and you're going to go through those obstacles one after the other and get to where you want to go. That's fine. But yeah.
And when it comes to contractors and most things in life, you can't control.
No.
You can't control people. You can influence, you can motivate, you can inspire. Focus on those things. When it comes to contractors, why not give a bonus for early and good completion, right?
Correct.
And why not you up front? You discuss this. You finish early, I'll give you $100 a day early. You finish that. Obviously, we check off all the check boxes, and the product is delivered in quality. And here's a bonus. You can get an extra $2,000 off this project if you want.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
And then late penalties as well, right? Motivate with the pleasure and the pain.
Yep. That's a great strategy. That's great. Now, we discussed briefly that you guys have done now a mobile home park. So tell us a little bit about that asset class. Why you decided to go into that space? What benefits do you see on that space, on that asset? Share some of that insight with us.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, it's not an asset class that's widely known in the investing space. It's wonderful because it's not as known. There's a lot more opportunities. Now, these parks, most of them were built in the 70s, 80s, and the people that built those parks today are looking to retire. A lot of parks, the owners are looking to retire. They're older, so there's a lot of older people managing these parks, wanting to get out, not knowing how to analyze their parks, not knowing necessarily how to sell them. So when you come into the off-market component and you contact owners, you have a clean slate. I mean, these owners, you offer them a fair price, but you're looking to pay for it. But what's nice is they don't necessarily know. So that's one advantage that there is in the mobile home park space, which is really fun. There's so many things.
Yeah, there's also that a lot of those mom and pop operations are not managed like a business. And so those vacant lots that are in there, it might be 80% occupied, might be 70% occupied. That's beautiful because that's a value add potential that you can control. You can spend an extra $30,000, get almost a new one, but you can get a used one and fix it up real nice, $30,000, and you've added cash flow, probably about $600-700 a month of pure cash flow off that. And you've increased the value of the park itself because we're talking commercial lending, like a multifamily apartment building. The value of that asset is based on the net income.
And the NOI.
Yeah. So you've controlled the fact that there's $700 more NOI coming in a month. You've controlled the fact that the park increases by $30,000 value. So in your move of spending, the money comes back.
Yep.
And at refinance, you get all the money back, and the cash flow stays forever.
Yep. Your returns are infinite.
It's a community, so you get to help a community all at once. Now, these homes, for the most part, it's low income housing. So, in most of our parks, people that are in our parks could not afford a 2-bedroom apartment in town. So, at that point, if they can't afford their mobile home, the next thing is the street. So what's nice is it allows people to get into affordable housing, and we get to impact a whole community at once, and people. So people get into affordable housing, which is really nice.
Which is nice, and there's a lot of need for that. Now, do you guys like to own also the actual mobile homes, or you just own the pads, and then how do you or you have a mix?
At this time, we have a mix. When we're looking to buy a park, it doesn't matter if they're all park owned or all tenant owned or there's a mix. It doesn't matter. You buy what you buy. Is it a good deal based on what you're buying day one? And then the goal long term is to get rid of the homes off our books. Provide, first of all, they're vehicles, right? So they're a depreciating asset, one. So, and over time, maintenance does increase, but not just the cost of the maintenance, but the management of the maintenance as well, which we can lean up our management and, keep on growing with a smaller team. And, it's just a leaner investment across the board. And on the other side, you can provide, or you can offer home ownership to someone who might have never even thought that was a possibility. Yeah, they've been living in it for 5, 10, 15 years, and all of a sudden, it's yours if you want it.
Yeah.
Right? Some of these homes aren't worth
Yeah.
anything, right? But they're worth something to them.
Right.
Correct. What are good markets for mobile home parks? I mean, I'm sure the Midwest, maybe. I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
We definitely love the Midwest. We're in the Midwest. But the cap rates, the return on investments, they're great in the Midwest. But mobile home parks, I mean, there's some in Florida. If people are looking to invest in a lower cap market, they're great everywhere. There's affordable housing needs everywhere in this country.
Yeah.
We've only bought and considered mobile homes in the Midwest, Michigan and Ohio specifically. We have offers on a lot more Midwest, states, but we've never pulled the trigger. We're really interested in cash flow at purchase, value add equity, and that's pretty much it. Now we're pretty much targeting parks that after the value add play are worth about 1.3 million or higher.
Okay.
That makes the back end refinance much easier, much more lower interest rate because we can fall into agency debt as well.
Correct.
So the financing and the refinancing play is very important when you're talking about small or mid-sized mobile home parks. So that's a consideration if you're starting with limited funds.
Now you go, most of this, you go initially with some kind of a bridge loan or renovation loan, and then you refinance once the value and the property has been stabilized. That's basically the same, renovation multifamily process but in a mobile home park. Is the same process? That's what you guys do?
Right. It's similar. The only thing that's the biggest difference with mobile home parks when you go into lending is the fact that they won't lend on expansion of the park. So they won't lend on you buying mobile homes compared to an apartment building where they'll finance your renovations. They won't do that. They won't, have capital for you to bring in homes. So you have to be a little bit more capital rich when you get into mobile home parks. So whether it be with your own money or with partners, but you need to have that capital available to bring in more inventory to your park.
Okay, so the financing initially is just for the purchase, and then you create that value into the property using your own capital or your investors or partners or whatever. And then once that is being stabilized, then you go and refinance the property. Okay. So that's the difference. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Perfect. Understood. Okay, great. And then do you do that also? I mean, do you bring investors? Do you partner up with other people and go into partnership when you're acquiring larger mobile home parks?
We do. We're very selective with who we get in bed with. A partnership for us is like a marriage.
Correct.
And so there's a process to get to know us, for us to get to know you. But let's just say we don't rush into partnerships. We've had partnerships, and we want them to be just as involved as we are. Often we're left holding everything. And if that was the expectation up front, it'd be one thing. But often people say, yeah, I can do this, I can do that, and it ends up not being the case, and that's disappointing. So now
we have a program that we created. It's a 3-tiered program. It starts with investing, so people get a flat return on their investment, and then it goes up to the partnership level, which is the 3rd level. So it gives us time to really get to know people and see if we want to continue working.
And you are mentoring and teaching these people when they go into the program, right?
It depends. Yeah, it depends on what they want. Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever thought about maybe launching a fund?
Many times.
It'll be called the Now for Tomorrow Fund, by the way. So nice. Yes, we have thought of it.
Okay, great. Well, that's a great way to scale. We're actually in the process of doing a fund for ourselves, for our investments, and I think it's a great way to scale. And then you still have control over the assets 100% as GP. So yeah, that would be great. I'll be interested. Is that a plan for 2022?
Not for 2022. In full transparency, about 2 years ago, we spent 9 months deciding if we wanted to go the fund route, and ultimately decided against it for the time being. And right now, as we sit, we've got more money than we need for our deals. Our biggest pain point was the project management. Yeah, we're excellent at finding, negotiating. We have the money. And then when we have the deal, well, the deal has to get to the other side to refinance. And that was the weakest link. And that's why the project manager that we just hired is going to be a big part of catching that opportunity and continue growing. So maybe sooner than we think.
And then the other challenge that we had being Canadian is that most of our people are in Canada. So then there was a transfer of money between countries that made it a little bit more difficult versus just creating a fund in the US and getting funds from US investors. That's a different story than getting funds from a Canadian investor investing in the US.
In the
so
US.
That put a stop, a little bit of halt on our fund a couple of years ago. But we have been rediscussing it maybe for next year. So
great. Yeah.
My goal is to make the fund a nonprofit. So that's where my mind is at right now. I'd like a fund where the investors make their profits, right? But it's a nonprofit. The Now for Tomorrow Fund, I like to see, kind of like NACA. If you're familiar with NACA, the Neighborhood Association Corporation of America.
Nice.
Providing
affordable housing, and would be a fund that it will be mainly investing on mobile home parks and multifamilies, or have you thought about it?
Most likely.
The asset class that we like the most.
That and to members of our Key to Freedom program.
Okay.
Key to Freedom is wanting to teach people how to buy their dream home in 2 years or less using none of their own money to do it. And having this beautiful Now for Tomorrow fund in there, we could be the banks on these people to help them in that process. So I really like the connection between your unlocking wealth and our Key to Freedom. Right, I feel there's something there that we might need to explore a little further.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would love to. I love to. So, what do you see? What's the next step for? I mean, we've discussed already a few things, but what are your big goals for 2022? What are you targeting this year?
Amazing question, because we have several companies. JK's Real Estate Partners is our education company, and Women G Properties is our acquisition real estate company, and we have a short-term rental management company as well. So JK's Real Estate Partners is the one that we've decided on focusing on for the last 2 years. We've been growing our JK community. We're helping people invest from Canada to the US, helping them build their own wealth through real estate. So we've been focusing on that mentorship. We offer courses, so we've been growing that community significantly. So 2022 is definitely a JK year. As for the Women G side, it's a stabilization year for us with our new project manager and closing out deals, refinancing, and by the end of the year, starting to buy again more real estate. And our short-term rental management company is moving to Florida, so we're doing that. We're established in Canada, in Ontario and Quebec and Ohio, and now we're moving to Florida as well. So managing a vacation home. For anyone wanting to buy a home in Florida.
Short-term rentals, okay.
That's right.
Okay, that's
a small year.
Guys are busy, and Jane, I know you're learning Spanish too, so you're definitely keeping busy. You guys are busy.
Yes. I am planning to go down south to Colombia for a month in Costa Rica at the end of the year.
Nice. Now you have an event coming up, right? Is an event is it in Costa Rica?
So we have a few things. We have a bus tour coming up in 2 weeks in Florida. So that's in February. I don't know if the show's going to host before then. Otherwise, we have our blueprint. So we call it the U.S. Real Estate Blueprint. And that's for people that are looking to invest remotely. And we teach Canadians or out-of-state investors how to invest remotely, which is a 3-day event. It's a 2-day event condensed. It's 3-day events condensed in 2, and there's bonuses and a quick start guide as well, and an ebook that comes with. I love it.
When is that event?
That event is in March, at the end of March.
Okay, and it's going to be where, in Florida?
It's online. It's on.
It's going to be online. Okay.
Yeah,
and people
online.
Just register and
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in that blueprint, what's really fun is we get to have our attorney that comes on. He talks about liability issues, and especially for Canadians, because we don't have that concept of protecting our assets as Canadians. We just don't have those laws in Canada. So he goes into that, which is really nice. And for the first time this year, we are pioneering a project with what we have in Canada is called RSPs. RSPs is your equivalent of the IRA account.
Okay. Okay. Yep.
So up until this point, we couldn't take our registered funds to invest in the US. It's just locked in Canada. You can't do anything with it. But
Until
until yeah, we found out how. So
How?
we're unlocking that, and that's brand new. We're buying a property in Florida with our RSPs right now as we stand,
Great.
and this is brand new. There's a lot
Oh,
of people with
wow.
lots of RSP money that thought it was just stuck
That's going
there.
to open up a lot of opportunities for Canadians to come to invest
Absolutely.
in the
So
US.
we're
That's
exactly. So
that's
we're going to teach
great.
that for the first time in March. So we're
Wow,
really
that's
excited.
amazing. That's great.
Yeah.
I might join that 3 day.
Yes.
I would love
It's
to.
worth it. Just for that,
Yes,
it's going to be worth
yes,
it.
yes. And towards the end, you'll share with me how our listeners can get into the program and find more information about it. I'm sure there's a lot of people outside of the US that would love to invest in the US. As a matter of fact, I have a lot of investors, friends from other countries that are always seeking to invest in real estate in the US.
Right.
So that'll be a great, mentorship course to
Mm-hmm.
take. What do you guys? I mean, there's a lot of talks right now. Interest rates going up a little bit, price corrections in different markets. They're all talking. It's just conversations. Really, nothing is happening yet. What is your opinion on? You become experts in the U.S. market, which I always kind of hesitant to analyze the market as a whole because there's so many sub markets and local markets that I think real estate is really kind of we got to analyze it very local. But what are your thoughts in general about the markets where you guys invest, where you guys see most of the opportunities? What are your thoughts on the economic, the weather right now in the U.S.?
Well, it's funny because the reason that we're focusing this year and we focused last year on JK's Real Estate Partners, because at some point there will be a correction, right? Markets are cyclical. It's been over 10 years since the last correction. We're due. We're just due. And so the focus is so that we can get as many people ready, knowledgeable, masters at investing remotely. So when it does correct, they're not starting to learn or doing a mistake in an excellent market. They're just picking them up like candy. Right? It's as easy as giving candies to a baby. That's how easy we want it to be. And so that's why the focus has been there for 2 years. We honestly thought at first that COVID would be the catalyst to the correction. It did the opposite,
Yeah.
But that's what we thought. So when we came back from our honeymoon, when we were in China when the lockdown started, right? And we just got out of China. We went to Thailand for our honeymoon right when everything was closing down. We just got out. The day airports were closing, we got out of China. Wow. And then we spent our real honeymoon in Thailand. And when we came back, we made it a point to inspire people that even through, not in spite, but because of COVID, we can have all of our dreams and more come true, right? COVID is the constant opportunity virus involving decision makers, right? That's what COVID stands for. But you have to be a decision maker. You have to make a decision in these times to advance yourself.
But ultimately, no matter what the market is, we teach two things. You have to invest at a discount and with cash flow. And if you follow those two golden rules of real estate, you can make money in any market.
Yeah.
So even if you buy at the top of the market, if your property cash flows and you bought with equity, there's, first of all, if the market goes down, you have a spread there. And second of all, if it cash flows now because you bought right, it's going to cash flow then. So
correct.
So it's too bad for appreciation buyers, but cash flow buyers, perfect.
Correct. And that's the way to do it, right? I mean, you don't buy to speculate with the potential price of the property.
We don't.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't. And this still applies in Florida, for example. We just bought a beautiful I'm foreshadowing here. Right. I shouldn't knock on wood. We know how real estate can go sometimes, but it's looking very good that in about 2-3 weeks we'll close on this beautiful property in Davenport, Florida, 25 minutes from Disney, and it's a single family home, about $750,000 to buy it. And we're still bought under market. Even in a crazy hot market, properties are appreciating 12 to 25% per year in that zip code. And we're still buying under market. So and we're going to cash flow because we're going to make this a short-term rental. We're going to be in the top 1%. We're not going to just fall in the mess of everything else. We're going to really stand out. We're going to triple the income based on the averages and have some massive cash flow. So buy at a discount. Buy cash flow. It doesn't matter what market you're in. It doesn't matter what market cycle you're in.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there's always opportunity. There's one deal every day, everywhere. It's just a matter to connect with the people, build relationships, and find these deals. Because but I agree. There's tons of deals out there, even in this marketplace, as it is right now. I agree, 100%. Um, so, any mentor, I mean, throughout your real estate career, any people that you follow, any mentorship program that you've joined, that you would like to share with us?
We've followed many. Right. We wouldn't recommend the all. We wouldn't recommend any one for the entire package other than ourselves. No. But that's why we decided to start JK's, is because we've taken so much from all these places. We just took the best from everywhere and removed the not so good, and to create something that
You
we
want to
thought
share
could be
it?
better. And but our biggest mentors along the way, I mean, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, those are mindset, not real estate.
Yep.
But that's the most valuable piece of real estate you will ever own. You already own it, and it's the 3-4 inches
In your
between
head.
your ears.
Yep.
That's the real estate that you need to invest in.
Yep. Yeah, they're so important to educate yourself, right? I always like to quote this. I heard it from an expert in real estate. Is is investing is not risking. It's not really investing in real estate is not risky at all. What is risky is that you don't know what you're doing, right? So it's so key to understand and to learn where you're getting into before you actually invest, and then you minimize the risk of that investment, right? With the knowledge you've learned. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. That's the best investment you can do. What do you think, or what would you like to suggest or share with us 3 or 4 good books that you would recommend our listeners to read and to follow? Any particular author? It doesn't have to be real estate, but it can be mindset, it can be anything, any book.
Well, in our ebook, that's book number 1. So our ebook would be a good place to start. But in our ebook, we recommend 3 books.
What's the name of your ebook?
Yeah, it's JK's Roadmap to Your First Million, one property at a time.
Okay, and we can download it in Amazon, or okay, perfect.
Yeah, you can actually. I'll send you the link, but it's free. We can give it to everyone that looking to get started.
Awesome. Yep. Yeah, we'll share that.
Yeah, we'll add it in the we'll send it to you for the notes. And for those of you who are more auditory right now, n4t.club/ebook.
Okay.
Easy.
Perfect.
N4T, like now for tomorrow. That's kind of our tagline, the now for tomorrow. JK's now for tomorrow.
Okay.
So ultimately, 3 books that we recommend. The first one that changed our life was Napoleon Hill,
Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich.
Yep.
That was number 1. The second one is more of a mindset, and it's Sean Anker's Happiness Advantage.
Okay.
Really, really interesting. And the third one is people who never started in real estate and are looking to get started, is the Rich Dad Poor Dad, the first, or the series of books. Yep. So those are the 3 that we recommend anyone getting started.
Yep. Those are great books. Yep. Thank you for sharing that. And if we've discussed a lot about mindset, and we're giving that such a high priority, right? On your mindset, on your education. What other 2 or 3 skills does anybody need to develop and get better at it, or habits to become successful in, let's say, real estate investing or anything really, to be able to unlock that potential of wealth creation?
I'd say getting organized is very important. It's a skill that not a lot of people have, but the more you're organized, the easier it gets. And I'm, for one, not very organized. I learned, and it's making my life easier. So that, I think, is a very important skill to get. The other skill would be having goals, setting goals. People don't know how to set goals. Again, I learned a lot from Kyle. And Kyle is naturally good at all this. I need teaching. But knowing where you're going, what's your vision for your life? First of all, the vision for your life, what's the vision for your wealth, for your family, for what you want to do? And then how are you going to get there? And then establish goals based on that. And super important, when you divert, because you don't get to a specific goal, it's okay. What's the vision? And then the goal is the breakdown. So if you don't attain a certain goal, it doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean you quit. It just means you changed the path, period. So a lot of people quit along the way, but that's because they don't have the end vision in mind. So you have to think about that.
The importance
Super,
of
super
setting
important.
goals, huh? Very
The
important.
other thing, the mindset component is a lot of people, when they set a goal, they don't achieve that goal. It's like a bullseye. If they don't achieve that goal, it's like they failed because they hit somewhere else than the bullseye. But you didn't fail. It's part of life. We're learning along the way. So don't hate yourself because you set a goal that you wanted 10 properties in a year and you got 8. You got 8. That's 8 more than most people. Celebrate that.
Yeah, celebrate.
And what did you learn along the way that next year you'll get the 2 and you'll get 10, and then eventually you'll get 10 more. And it's just, it's a life. It's, it's a roadmap. It's a road trip.
Yeah.
So
The importance of celebrating yourself and celebrating your wins is very
important.
That keeps you motivated, right? Because sometimes we're so hard on ourselves and we don't take the time to celebrate our wins. And I think that's is just so important and key.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, I'm really glad you said that. And on celebration specifically, I start every one of my celebration calls. Every one of my coaching calls, I start with celebration every time. Between the last call we had last week or 2 weeks ago, what are we celebrating today? I start every single call that way. Super, super important. We forget. We do so much good to ourselves, to our family, to our community, just by being, and that should not go unnoticed.
Yeah.
So that's one. And I'm really, really glad you mentioned vision as the trick, because Janie is the visionary. She has that naturally. I'm not. I'm the organization that comes naturally. And together, we can really make something big. It's really amazing. I've always seen it as complementary. My strength, her weakness, her strength, my weakness.
Yeah.
And it's funny now because I just finished recording JK's New Year Revolution, where now I'm the one teaching people how to find their vision. I learned well. So, through those four modules, people write themselves a dream letter, right? They go through the Janie exercise, which is basically, if time, money, and geography were of no concern to you, what would you do?
What would you do?
What would your life be? Who would you live it with?
Find that why,
That's great. Yeah, finding a way. Yeah, that's great. Now you guys complement with each other, right? I mean, you're the organization, you're the visionary, but now I'm sure you guys have learned from each other so much, and that you've improved on the areas that you weren't that good, vice versa. How that interacts with your life as a couple, as husband and wife? What are the challenges? How difficult or easy is? Sure.
That's easy. She's always right.
Yeah, I know. You just have to convince ourselves about that. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a great question. At first, we used to do everything together. And then eventually we realized that, we have to let the person whose strength do what they do best, and then, and vice versa. So at that point, we started to separate the roles in the business, and what I like doing is not necessarily what he likes doing. So we separated that, which was important. Then putting lines, there's work days and there's time for the couple, and you have to have those lines. And it was hard for us at first, and for a couple of years, because we used to live in a small apartment, and our office was also our living room. And so at 6 o'clock, well, if we're still working, it was supposed to be couple time, and it wasn't. And so eventually we had to talk that out and say, listen, we have to have our space. We have to separate our roles, and there needs to be couple time. There needs to be time where I can talk to my husband when I'm having a bad day, not because I just feel like complaining. As the CEO, there are days when there's things that we need to do, but at night it just feels good sometimes to just I'm tired and it's a tough day, and I don't need you to tell me what to do. I just want to be heard and loved and cuddled. That's it. That was a bit of a challenge.
And we got, I work with my wife too, and sometimes the dinner conversation becomes the business situation that you had in the morning, and then it's how you draw those lines. Well, now we're going to talk about other stuff, family, plans to do something next weekend, whatever. But, try to leave that business conversations where they need to be, right? And that's a huge challenge.
It's a challenge.
Yep, it is. So
Constant.
this year, being in Florida, spending so much time, we now have Disney days,
That's great.
which today
That's
is
good.
actually.
Okay, believe it or
Great.
not, he does work in the lines. He doesn't totally disconnect.
Well, that's awesome. That's great. That's great. I'm happy for you guys. I mean, to manage and keep that balance is amazing, and I know it's always a work in progress, right? We just always constantly improving and getting better at it. So congratulations for what you guys have achieved. It's amazing. Your story is great.
Communication is very important. There's three things we just quickly that we like to ask ourselves when we have a conflict or something that's not going wrong as good as we want to, is when we talk to each other. One is, what works for me is, what doesn't work for me, and what could be done differently. And in those three, there's no finger pointing. There's you point out what you like, what you don't like, and what can be done differently. You bring a solution.
Yep.
So that's a very good way that we use to keep track and to communicate as business partners, but also as spouses.
As a couple. Yeah, I agree. And adding that to what you said, the acknowledgement part, right? I acknowledged how you felt. I acknowledged how you see things, and then you just move on. But that's perfect. That's great insight. But I'm very happy with what you guys are doing. I mean, there's so many things going on. I mean, if some of our listeners would like to get more information about your mentorship programs, about all the programs that you guys have going on, how can they get in touch with you or your company to get on it?
Perfect. So the easiest way is by email. So that's info@nowfortomorrow.club. So Now for Tomorrow is all written out.
Okay.
And it's FOR, not the number 4. So that's the easiest number, the easiest way. Email. And then we do have a phone number where they can reach us at. That's 567-343-7100. So those are the two easiest ways to get a hold of us. And of course,
website.
We have a website.
And we have the webinar coming up.
Right. So the website, n4t.club. And we have our blueprint coming up.
Great.
So we'll write that. I'll send you the link, David.
Yes, send me the links and the information, and I'll make sure that I post it as well on our video on YouTube when it comes out. So when people see it, they can actually just go to any of those links, get in contact with you. And I strongly recommend, because I did it, and most of the people that are having success in this space have definitely joined mentorship programs, learn how to do it. I mean, don't make the mistakes that we've done it. Right. So I really encourage people to get on mentorships, and I know people that have done your mentorship and they are fascinated, they love it. So you are very knowledgeable. Thank you guys for the time and participating in this podcast. And I'm sure we'll see each other again. I'm definitely going to have you guys again, because I love the conversation and learning from you guys. So thank you so much.
Muchísimas gracias. Thank you so much for having us. It was a real pleasure, and we look forward to learning more about you. And thank you for doing this, and for your listeners. I think you're doing a great service for everyone listening. It's important to get knowledge and to learn before investing, so you can learn so much and you can avoid so many costly mistakes.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you guys. Enjoy Florida, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. We'll see you now for tomorrow for the lifestyle you deserve. Bye-bye.
I love that. I love it.
Bye.